There we go. So we're recording here, so that looks about right. Well, uh, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We'll go with good evening because that's what it is in England, and that's where our speaker is from today. So we're very lucky to have Heloise Brown joining us. I'm going to do a more proper introduction for her in a second, but I first wanted to say welcome to everybody that's on Zoom and also say welcome to everybody that's going to watch this later as the recorded session. I know we're in summertime, that kind of delays us up a little bit, so we catch it up later. I wanted to kind of put out a couple quick, I guess, updates. So obviously we didn't have a session last time with Ross Bentley. We will be rescheduling him for September. It's recorded, so now it has to happen in September. We'll try and make that happen or not. Um, but before we kind of dive too deep in, I'd like to turn this over to Tom. Can I just share some updates, things going on with ICMS, the annual Congress, students in general?
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody, for joining the group today. I'm really happy with the mentor program and what we're doing with our student members of the ICMS. I did want to share with the group, and especially those that are not with us on the recording, for all of our students, and I'd ask you to even push this out and spread the word. Our annual Congress Curriculum Committee has met. We're working on the lineup of presenters and topics. But on the big theme for this year, last year, as everybody knows, we launched the poster presentation room. It went over extremely well. Very appreciative of all the students who put the effort into joining us and, more importantly, presenting their research and studies. Fantastic reception. The post-event survey, the number one thing we got was do more with the poster rooms. So for hydration, concussions, ortho, all the other topics we could have had, everybody wants more from our students, which is phenomenal because that is our future. So I am working with the curriculum committee, and I will say on day one, which is actually the whole week starts on Tuesday, December 9th with the reception in the evening. Day one of the annual Congress is Wednesday, December 10th. The poster presentation room will be open. Everybody will have their displays going. We'll push all of the attendees in there at some point throughout the day. And at the end of day one, we're actually going to have all the attendees go through an app and we're going to have them vote for the top three presentations they like the most. And those students who are elected as the top three are going to get to present at the ICMS Annual Congress on day two. To really be able to do an extension of what they're able to do in their short time in the poster room. So excited to be able to offer our students an opportunity to present at an international motorsports, medical, and safety event. I think that's phenomenal. Registration for the event will open up in August. I'll be working with the students on some hotel options. We have a room block downtown at the JW Marriott and a couple other properties that are sister properties. Last year, I know that I worked with several of the students. They stayed at a Hampton Inn about 12 minutes from downtown. It was considerably less. I met with the management of the hotel. They're willing to give us a good rate again. But again, poster presentations are back at the annual Congress, and in day two, the top three selected from day one will be presenting. So excited for that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. And actually, that's going to sort of tie into my introduction here in a second. So I think this is wonderful that we have students back presenting. I will say when I was a student, I never got to stay at the JW Marriott though. I was usually more at like the days in Smoke City, something like that. So, we're taking much better care of them than I was. And on that note, that kind of brings me to why we're here today. Um, every now and then I get emails from people saying, "Dear Dr. Ferguson, I'm interested in motorsports. Can you help me? Can we do something?" And I try to talk to most of them. But several years ago, I got this one email which was phrased, "Dear Dr. Ferguson, I'm a student at the University of Surrey, and I'm doing my thesis on motorsport physiology. I read your book and figured you would be a good one to have help me in this process because none of the faculty here do that." And I was like, well, I guess I better respond to this one. That obviously turned out to be Heloise, and she did a wonderful study kind of comparing different physiological responses to different racetracks. And then she went on and continues to have a very successful career in sort of the driver support, driver management area of training drivers, taking care of them. She's going to talk much more about that. And it's been a real pleasure of mine to walk through the paddock every now and then and see her with opposite teams. Those teams usually beat mine for some reason. I was very lucky this year. I saw her at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. She was not with a team. I was like, oh, good, I've got a shot to win this one. So with that, I'm very happy to welcome Heloise Brown to share a little bit about what she does and kind of her career path. We're going to go for probably about 35, 40 minutes. There's no real rush on time, and we'll kind of fill up with questions. Several people Eloise, couldn't attend this one, and so they've supplied questions to me to pass on to you at
Okay.
the. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, it was quite funny. The emailing Dr. Ferguson. Obviously, I had read the book. I had a week deadline before my university was going to say, no, you're doing this, that, the other for my dissertation. So that email was didn't have much content to it. I had no real game plan. It very much was a shot in the dark and a hope and a pray that that he would believe in me and my vision for obviously a motorsport career, but also this dissertation itself. So I'm happy to say that obviously have both efforts kind of created a top grade, and obviously really helped me get into motorsport and all the networking that came with it. So yeah, big thank you to replying to that email and taking a chance on me. I'll share my screen. Has that worked?
Not yet. We still see you, which is okay.
Okay, let's try this again. It's saying that it's sharing, but
Are you on like a tablet or something like that?
I'm on my laptop. It's saying device preferences.
And sometimes it might be easier to share your whole main screen and then pull up the window you want.
It says it has to give the web browser permission.
Oh. All right. Did that. Let me try that.
Have you changed it on your side?
I changed something on my side. Try again.
No?
No? Dr. Hill, I'm going to lean on another academic to help me out here if you have any ideas.
Well, David, from our experience on all the cafes, a lot of times if you have multiple screens open, I try to have them minimize and close everything but the presentation they want to use.
Okay.
So that way, when they click on the green icon for share screen, it should just be one option. Click on that, and it should pop up. Maybe Heloise. I don't know if you have multiple open or not. Now she's froze.
Oh no, that also might be another problem.
Bandwidth. Let's go to commercial. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Right back
Thank you,
in
everybody.
Team, yeah.
Got to pay some bills.
Well, yeah, Tom, I really like the idea of voting for the presentation. I think it's going to be great. Eloise, you're back. I have 2 of you now.
2 of me?
There we go.
Hey, here it works. Perfect.
Okay. There we go. Perfect. You can see all that now?
Yep.
Perfect. So basically, yeah, so I'm going through the role behind the helmet and basically being a performance coach in motorsport, the do's, the don'ts. I'll talk a bit about my background, the roles and responsibilities of being a performance coach, understanding the do's and don'ts of motorsport, networking and getting opportunities, and also building yourself as a personal brand, not necessarily having a business or really promoting yourself that much, but just having a brand in that you kind of are insightful in the industry and are pushed as such. Working with a team versus working with a driver, and where you want to shift your career based on your preferences or what you can get or what you prefer. Understanding the demands of different series, so that's a formula series versus doing an endurance series. The typical qualifications and continuous learning in motorsport, and then the pros and cons of working in motorsport and being in motorsport. Then just 3 final tips, and then a Q&A at the end. So just a bit about my background. So my academic background is in sports science. I did study, as David said, in the University of Surrey. And I did my degree in sports science, but then I obtained a UKSCA qualification, which is what allowed me to work in professional sport. I took a placement in university for national and Olympic swimmers, but it wasn't for me. And I've tried other sports with volleyball and football and stuff, but it just wasn't the right path for me. And I felt that my real interest was in motorsport. And at the time, I gained an opportunity to work with King's the Wild Frontier. And that role gave me the opportunity to work in close proximity with drivers from all levels, from karting to F1 to WRC, LMP2 drivers. And so that then led me to write a really niche motorsport-focused dissertation with Dr. Ferguson on analysing the physiological responses of race car drivers in different cars, and how to then translate that to training if you were to have a driver change from karting to formula or formula to endurance. I then worked with Kings from late 2020, focusing on training and testing drivers. And then last year I moved to 06, which shifted more towards performance coaching and race support with both teams and drivers. And then that transition kind of saw me attend F2 tests, Spa 24, Le Mans, Petit Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring, all in 1 year. And that was kind of like the year I decided to kind of push more into racing. And obviously with the connection with David, I was able to work with Corvette for some of the IMSA rounds. And then I started doing stuff with LMP3 teams in Asian Le Mans and drivers from Elms, and then started working with Garage 59, who are the McLaren GT World Endurance Challenge, and with ERA in the Ferrari Creventic Endurance Championship, as well as a continuing role with Goodyear with various WEC events. And at the start of my career, as I think many students are, just because of the spectatorship and Netflix and whatever, are quite fixated on F1. But through serendipity, to be honest, I specialized in endurance racing, and that field really does align well with my background in triathlon and ultra running. So it just allowed me to have quite a strong reputation and skill set for training drivers myself, while also leveraging my own experience as an endurance athlete to enhance the performance in the paddock. So the roles and responsibilities of a performance coach on and off track. So I'll start on track. So track, I feel like it's quite a new movement with motorsport, and also having the buy-in, I feel, is also quite a big point to try and convince teams and drivers for this. But to be honest, trackside support for drivers can greatly depend on the team's needs and expectations. They, at the end of the day, are the ones hiring you. So you have to fill the role that they have created. Many teams are obviously accustomed to a certain level of support, and they may only expect the baseline. And the real challenge there is trying to find the opportunity to gradually raise that standard of performance support, maximizing both the driver but also the pit crew, because after all, without a crew, there's no functioning car. In endurance racing in particular, I'd say that trackside support is more critical. People might say otherwise, but more critical than single seater. I think with multiple driver changes, you got the prolonged physical and mental strain. You have inevitable sleep deprivation over the course of 6, 12, 24 hours. The role of a performance coach becomes more integral as a team, recognizes the need to bridge the gap between training and race execution. It's not just about peak performance for one stint. It's about managing sustained endurance over the course of the whole week, because a lot of teams, you're there from Tuesday and you don't race till Saturday or Sunday. If it's a 24, obviously, they're long days with night practices and stuff like that. Again, trying to keep the crew on top is a big part of the job. And then it goes well beyond the basics of fueling and hydration. It just, everything through the driver flows through you. So the coordination of media duties or handling paperwork and doing driver changes. You're responsible for the nutrition and the hydration protocols, caffeine intake, sleep, jet lag strategies. And then obviously there's the psychological side of it, providing support to an anxious driver or a motion sick one. I think that always makes people laugh, but it happens. And then using sports massage to prepare them for the next session. There's a role in obviously biomechanics. So again, different from single seater versus endurance. Obviously, I'm a lot more in endurance right now, so that's where my experience lies. But with seat fits, it's creating, it's helping work with those guys that create them and making sure your drive doesn't cramp, that they're in the right position. You know where all the niggles are. You know their constant injuries. You've worked with them. You know them, their body and how they work and what they respond to. So working with those guys and getting the most out of your driver is essential, especially if they have, reoccurring injuries and issues. Having also a tailored warm-up routine for it and executing that before they get in is vital. And these routines might focus on reaction times, core stability, joint mobility, and just priming them for the stint ahead. Or with hot races, you've got cooling strategies like cold vests, cold towels, like ice towels that you can put in the fridge, like wet it, put it in the fridge, and just help the drivers perform at their best. With endurance racing, it's a lot more about managing accumulative fatigue, whereas with formula, it's reaching like a peak endurance for that race. Sorry, a peak performance for that race. And for trackside, obviously, it's making sure a driver stays sharp and is recovering properly, and that will make the significant differences for the final hours and the final laps of the race. Then off track, obviously you're with the drivers away from the races. So you're working with them, 3 to 5 times a week in the gym, whether that's doing heat training or strength and conditioning, whether that's riding bikes or running or swimming. You can see in this photo here, this is Ride London, just to get, drivers' motivation to want to train. It's getting up and doing these challenges with them. This was 170K from London to Essex, just as a new goal, like that's away from racing, that really motivates them to want to train. And in that, you can extrapolate that on track. In terms of looking at sleep and periodized training, that all comes with it. But again, you're kind of dancing with their race schedule, their media schedule, their testing schedule. So not only are you kind of fighting with that, you're also trying to get their nutrition in line with all their races as much as you can. If they're here for a week, you make the most of it. The do's and don'ts of motorsport and understanding them. The do's, I would say, again, pushing for a buy-in for a team and a driver, there's a lot of lack of education, and it's a constant battle because many drivers, especially in the junior ranks, don't fully grasp how much their physical fitness and nutrition impacts performance. So while some elite drivers invest heavily in their training, others kind of see it as secondary to seat time, which, it depends. And then convincing them and a team that strength, endurance, and fueling properly can improve reaction time, reduce fatigue, and even prevent injuries is a constant battle in the sport. And even more focusing on the car performance and driver performance makes it difficult to implement structured programs at the track because their schedules are very erratic and change constantly. Another do is looking after yourself because, again, travel schedules don't only affect your driver, they affect you. You're on the long haul flights, you're sleep deprived, and that you're no use to anyone if you're also struggling. Obviously, with a 24-hour, you are up for 36 to 38 hours because you're there for setup. You're there before the race starts. You're there after. You're doing pack down. So in terms of looking after yourself, it is important just so you can make sure they're at their best. I would say volunteer beyond your role. Help the team, show up early. You're there as like a professional value adder. The more you know, the more you help, the more you're wanted. Building relationships with drivers, engineers, team principals, truckies, anyone that's there. People hire people they trust. Word of mouth in motorsport is massive. Make sure you put a good impression in. Staying up to date with sports science trends and fueling strategies. I would say a big one is looking out beyond motorsport. Even though Dr. Ferguson obviously puts a lot of effort into research into motorsport, you can get a lot from cycling, running. There's like a plethora of stuff there that you can really extract from and then apply. So staying up to date on that and not being too focused on motorsport, you can take so much from other endurance sports, especially nutrition, heat strategies, heat training, all of that. Understanding the paddock culture and then who are the key decision makers. This is important in terms of staying in motorsport for a long run, and also showing who to work with and all of that. There are strong decision makers in the sport, so you've got to make sure you know who they are and they know who you are. Offer niche value. So what your USP is, I think is really, really strong. Obviously, there's a lot of people wanting to go into motorsport. There's a lot of performance coaches, physios, sports massage. Like, it's a saturated market in that sense. You have to stand out. So know your unique selling point and make sure you present it and you can offer it and you stand out. And you have your own protocols and stuff like that are different from others that people really, really recognize. Don't expect high pay too early. You do have to prove yourself first. I think negotiating motorsport is difficult already, but when you start, I'd say probably for the first year, take what you can get. And then once you have your rep, once you have your experience, you can move from there in your negotiations. And again, once you've proved yourself, you then have a stepping stone to push for that. Don't overpromise. Motorsport is a tiny, tiny world, tiny paddock. Everyone knows everyone. So reputation is everything. I think with that, soft skills, you really do need soft skills, not just the gym membership or just, knowing you can bench a certain amount. Like, it won't correlate. Like, you do need to have the soft skills of strong communication, interpersonal skills, adaptability. Like, this whole industry is so unpredictable. You need to be the like unsung hero in a way. The other thing is, don't take things personally. Most conversations in motorsport are either going to be triggered by ego, politics, or money. So again, things will go wrong. They just will. Take it as such. It's not personal. Don't expect predictable nature. It's a fast-moving industry. The deal isn't as solid as you think. everything changes, driver lineup change, teams change, team principles change. You don't have the deal until you're there. I think a lot of people look past that. There's a lot involved. There's a lot of moving parts. So again, until you're there, it's not yours. So yeah, don't get complacent with roles or jobs like that, because it is such a fast moving industry. Networking and personal brand. Building presence, especially using social media in this day and age, especially the youngsters going into it and the students. I think sharing insights, sharing what you learn, but staying professional with the industry with presence and also credibility. You just want to use it. Like it would be a disadvantage not to. That's what everyone sees. That's what people follow. So either using stuff like LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it's called now, stuff like that will only aid you if you use it right, and get people knowing what you're doing, and in turn it will just help build rep and jobs. And if people know you're at a race, people use you. So I'd say, yeah, just build a presence and stay professional on it. The other thing is to build networking is attend races, especially the grassroots ones, karting and junior levels. Those are the guys that are going to be the future. And normally they have quite experienced mechanics or engineers or anything like that. You never know who knows people. There's a lot of spotters at these events as well, who obviously work in higher level that are looking for the next talent. So it's just a great thing to go to. Connecting with performance directors, other physios, sports scientists, and using the right platform. Again, reaching out like I did on email, or it's just worth the shot. There's no risk to it. So I would highly recommend doing that. And also there's loads of training platforms or training gyms, which is again what I did with King of the Wild Frontiers and 06, is if you see a company or a gym or a platform that you really respect or learn from, reach out and shadow them. Like, if you get the inspiration from them, chances are working with them is going to be a good idea, because it's going to be aligned with you and your values and where you want to get to. The other thing is offering value first. So again, you got to be a professional value adder. So that's to driver coaches, engineers, all of those guys. They're struggling during a 24, or they're struggling during endurance races. These are long weekends. They're away for weeks. Helping out those guys will only do you well. You will learn so much, whether it's, something simple with helping put radios together, or helping put stickers on a car, or sorting out the box, or having a different variation of the race setup, or helping move a car to scrutineering. There's like little things and little conversations you can have that are just a lot more personable and integrate you within a team, and people value you more because you make them feel good and feel listened to and feel seen. And that's your job, is making sure that everyone in the team performs well. And to perform well, you have to feel good, you have to feel seen, you have to feel valued. So really your job is helping out everyone and making sure the whole team works in cohesion. I'd say don't pitch too much. Obviously you're going to have education, you're going to have the knowledge, you're going to have more than the ones there in terms of health and fitness and that. Don't bother pitching. When they want stuff from you, they'll ask. So just, it's more about listening and seeing how they're doing and seeing where to add and like starting from example. They'll follow. It'll be like if you go out for a run instead of drinking, there's no point hammering that point in. They'll join you for the runs at points, or they'll ask, and you can get for some of the teams, you have like a little run club on Thursdays, or when we have like a track walk. So like, again, with added value, having your own protocols, knowing your own drivers and standing out will do you so well. Again, as I said before, word of mouth in motorsport, it's a small world. It's key. One good impression can get you into much bigger paddocks, and one conversation can change the trajectory of your whole year, whether it gets you a season or a big race. Just having that conversation and being bold enough to put yourself out there the risk is none. Like, you can just have the conversation and get to know people. Contracts. So this is with teams versus drivers. So you have two options as a performance coach in motorsport. You have working for a team. So in that case, you are in a contracted role. You have a very wide range of support. You have multiple drivers. You've got a whole crew. You're normally there for setup and pack down. So you're there from like a Tuesday. You probably leave on a Monday. You're there when the drivers aren't there. So it's just it's broader responsibilities. You have the whole logistics of the weekend. You have organizing media and all paperwork and organizing pit crew. With this, it could be argued a different way, but I would say you have more job security working for a team, but it is way less flexible. As I mentioned, you are there for like weeks as opposed to days. You also are flying out with a crew and you're flying back with a crew. Also in terms of hours, that means you're getting there in the morning with a crew. So you might have a leave time of 6 a.m. and drivers don't turn up till 2. You know, there is that logistical aspect to it where you kind of got to keep busy and help out the team where they need. Whereas working for a driver, you are a lot more personable. You got bespoke plans. You are traveling with them. You are going to the track with them. You are leaving with them. You are flying with them. You're helping them out all the way through. It's normally higher paid, but again, some would argue a lot less stable. That's not just in terms of the driver wanting you or needing you and deciding that. That's also a driver can be dropped by a team by any time. So just like that, if the driver's no longer with the team, you no longer have work either. So it's debating with yourself whether you think that is worth the risk, whether you want to do a hybrid of those, which is what I would recommend and what I do. You just have to think for yourself and see what you can do with contracts, what conflicts, what doesn't. You got to talk to your driver and your teams about what A races and B races you'll go to. And you just got to communicate and understand where the boundaries are with these contracts. Obviously, with a driver, you adapt to one driver's need, and that's unique to them and their personality. So everything you do revolves around that one driver. That can obviously get quite the same and quite a routine. So you can get something quite hammered down and to the T. But simultaneously, if you're with a driver for like 3 years, you might then, want something different to not get too comfortable. The difference with endurance and formula. So I'd say the first is physical conditioning. So if you're a formula driver, you're looking at short bursts, high G-force, a lot of neck strength, a lot of core strength, but they're normally doing one stint. So that's anything from, 25 minutes to 90 minutes. With endurance, you got sustained overall fitness, sleep management, repeatable efforts, recovery. There's a lot that goes in it with endurance, especially a lot of stuff can be made outside of the track. Mental prep. So for the formula, you got intense concentration, rapid decision-making, again, over a shorter time. Endurance, you're trying to maintain that focus over a long period of time. You have irregular sleep. You're adapting to changing stint times. You might be out of the car. You might have done a double stint, been out of the car for 10 minutes and been asked to go back in. That's happened. With night stints, you might be, you might have a shocker in the dark and not be able to drive or have issues with sight and stuff. So then you're being swapped. You need the whole driver lineup changed going forward, or you think you might get, 2 hours of sleep, but throughout the night you might get 5 minutes. There's a lot of mental prep and staying in the zone and trying to be focused in a car for that period of time, with obviously adapting to lack of sleep and all of that. It's pretty difficult. For team coordination for the Formula Series, you're normally working with exclusive one driver. So with the teams, I wouldn't say you actually integrate that deeply with. With endurance, it's completely different. So you support multiple drivers, the crew. There's you need to harmonize the routine. So let's say you got 11 drivers and 3 cars. you're trying to look after them all at the same time and make sure they all get, you know, a certain standard across the whole lineup. You're also communicating, so you've got a headset on the whole time, communicating with engineers when they want the drivers in, which drive they want next, because the next driver has to be in the garage an hour before the stint. So if they're in the RV, you're going, you know, to go get to the RV to get them. You're going to get food. You might do a treatment on them. And with a lineup of 11 drivers and one person, obviously, it's a busy 24 hours or 38 hours, to be honest. With routine formula, it is structured. That routine is tied to the race weekend and media obligations. You're optimizing for a peak performance. Unless there's red flags or, again, weather, you know what's coming. With endurance, you have a ever-evolving race dynamic. You got weather changes, night stints, night sessions. You got rest cycles, long-haul travel, jet lag, nutrition, hydration, caffeine. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving gears. So you're just trying to, you know, keep the fort down and make sure everyone gets what they need, because things can slip quite easily. Typical qualifications and continuous learning. So I'd say having an academic background, very useful. Having a degree in sports science, kinesiology, physiology, physiotherapy, having additional qualifications like UKSCA is very beneficial. I think the American one is NSCA. Stuff like first aid, sports nutrition, really like just giving yourself as much cred as possible and making it as holistic as possible, I would say, is a massive benefit in motorsport. You've got to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, really. But having experience in motorsport as well, understanding the mental strains of motorsport, understanding the weekends, logistics, how it goes, how the team goes, who reports to who, how everyone's doing. You need to know how that works. And that team culture, you got to know it inside out. I would say soft skills as well, develop them where you can, and practical capabilities. You might be asked to do certain things and you just need to go in with competence. So having a strong communication skills, interpersonal skills, adaptability, because it's just unpredictable. So going in with competence and confidence, I think, again, don't overpromise, but make sure you are competent when asked to do something, whether it's asking certain teams for things or needing to speak to certain people. If you're the go-to, that's a great place to be. For mental performance and psychology, I'd say there's a heavy reliance on mental strength, resilience, and stress control. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. You're away from home a lot. You're traveling long haul. You're tired. You're stressed. You know, there's a lot that goes on. These race weeks are long, especially. A lot of people do them back to back. So understanding how to do that and get the most out of your team when you're a driver, I would say learning, you know, the mental training of that and how to get the best out your driver is essential. The pros and cons of motorsport. So I say the pros: you're traveling the world, it's pretty cool. You're in a high performance environment. You're working with elite athletes. You're constantly learning and adapting. You have like a really close-knit work family connection, and you're around passionate people. I don't think there's anyone that works in motorsport that isn't passionate about motorsport. They're all, if you meet anyone there, they're there for decades. So you can learn so much from them. Again, there's just listen and learn. The paddock is a cool place to be. The cons, there are some. Long days. You might be, you know, have a leave time of 6 a.m. and you're not back till 3 a.m. So they are long days, and then you expect to do it again, and that might just be the first day. So irregular sleep is very, very common. You're obviously away from home a lot. If you've chosen contracts and drivers, you will have back-to-back championships. So you might fly straight from one race and go straight to another. There is, again, depends how much you can kind of fill up your calendar, but you are, I think most are away from home a lot, especially engineers, and mechanics, you got prep days, you got testing. So there's more than just the race days. This one's worth mentioning. I think pay isn't always high early on. So if you're just starting out, don't be disheartened. It's just a start. It is high stress and high responsibility. Obviously, these races aren't cheap. A lot is invested in them. A lot goes on. There's a whole weight to it. And obviously, there is the passion behind it in wanting to win. So it can be very high stress and obviously high responsibility. With all the travel and irregular sleep, it's lack of routine. So if you're someone like that, you just got to be prepared, know yourself, know what you need, and supply it, because you are away a lot. So trying to find routines, for me, it's just trying to run, take my trainers, be able to run where I can, but trying to have your own routine where there isn't any, it's definitely a con to the job. I would say 3 tips, just final tips. Be reliable, be trustworthy. Your reputation is your CV. Never stop learning, research, seminars, just keep investing in your knowledge and keep up to date. Again, there's a lot of people in motorsport that's been in there for decades. Your unique selling point is that you're new, you got the new data, you probably know new training styles. Just keep up to date with it, and from different sports, apply it. There's nothing that hasn't been written. There's nothing that really hasn't been done. You can probably figure it out some way, and I'm sure you can reach out to people who have done it. Just gain as much knowledge as you can, and don't be complacent with it. You can always learn more, and those who are experienced are there for decades for a reason. So just, again, listen and learn. And the last one, build a skill stack. Fitness, physio, nutrition, psychology, that sort of effort doesn't require talent. So learn as much as you can, make it in different fields. If you feel that you're lacking knowledge in a field, go learn, study, speak to the right people. Don't have it as a weakness. I think being holistic as a coach benefits you so much. There's going to be people in the paddock that have one specialty, and that's great, but that's all they can do. And if that's all a driver wants, then fine. But I rarely find drivers who just want that, or it gets the novelty wears off pretty quick. So make sure you have loads of different avenues and strings that you can pull, because I think that's your best bet, really. And then, a Q&A.
Heloise, thank you so much. That was great. I think that picture of us sums up our very different 24 hours of Le Mans right there.
Yeah.
I really also enjoyed how you said take other skills from other sports. And I know that, I have a little nutrition trick that I really like to use in motorsports that you like as well. And you didn't spill the beans on it. So I appreciate keeping that one there. So at this point, we'd love to open it up to questions. Heloise, I might say stop sharing your screen because I'm sort of getting an echo of myself. And if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat. We'll go from there. Tom, take it away, sir.
Thanks, David. Heloise, thank you for joining us. That was awesome. We actually have a really good conversation going about amongst 12 ICMS members about older racers, elderly racers, right? Those gentlemen racers who I say rich boys with their toys, who run in some of the sports car series or what have you. But a lot of the medical doctors, I've got David in this thread. Rob, I think, is in this thread. We're talking about what should there's got to be almost an effect on an elderly driver, health-wise, in many different areas, physically, mentally, reaction time, all those things. Have you done work with any older drivers so you could kind of compare it to the younger drivers, especially in the 24-hour, 12-hour, 6-hour races? Have you done any of that? I'm curious.
I have. I work with a lot of gent drivers. And I've worked with them in Creventic. I've worked with them in LMP2. I've worked with them in Michelin Cup 24-hour races. And they're so cute. Like, that's how I would describe them. They're like really cute because they like really want to push, but obviously a lot of the gent drivers, and I mean this in the best way, is that they don't necessarily look after themselves. Like they want the boy racer, they want to be, the guy in the car,
Mm-hmm.
driving, whatever, but they haven't necessarily looked after themselves or anything like that. And I'm definitely not one to sugarcoat. So if they do work with me, it is funny that they'll come out of a car sweating, like half dead. But you're like, you thought it was gonna be easy going into this, not fit. So it's again, it's giving them the right expectations. You're not going to come out this car fresh as a daisy. That's not what's going to happen, because you've got your manufacturing driver coming out like he's, walked in the park. It's different. And I think it's giving those expectations and making sure your protocols are in play with those drivers even more, cooling strategies, making sure you got the ice vests on, you got all that. Their nutrition needs to be hot. Like, it's almost not slipping up with them, because you're the one keeping them going, if that makes sense. Now there's drivers that are gent drivers in a 24. Most that I work with in a 24 don't do the night stints. So how it's done, they're normally in a bronze car because of their age. So if you are above 50, you are automatically a bronze category. So that means that you are in the bronze, you're in a bronze car, which means you're in the bronze class. With that, the bronze driver only has to do 6 hours of drive. I believe, I could be wrong here, but it's about 6 hours if there's multiple drivers of racing within a 24. That can be done and split up with it not including a night stint. Normally they'll put in the silvers or the pros in so that they get, I mean, when you see a gent driver at 24, sometimes they've had like 8 hours of sleep. They're looking fresh, like they're not doing the nights. And they're going home, they're going to the RV, they're sleeping, they're coming back at 6, and then they're finishing their driver times. So in that sense, different. Also, it's quite funny. Like, I think they have their habits, they're there smoking, whatever. Like, it's their nature. There's no point, as I said, there's no point pitching. These guys have been in the sport. Let them enjoy the sport. Yes, it's a difference in terms of helping them. You can only do so much. You can obviously, have all the right ergogenic aids in terms of caffeine and hydration, and working with the chefs with their nutrition and timings of that, and doing all the sports massage and treating them and stuff like that, and getting the right seat fits. And there's so many strings you can pull, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the fitness, you don't have the fitness. You're going to struggle in a car that hot and races that long. It's just about managing expectation, to be honest, and getting them to enjoy it. They're there to kind of have fun. I think people don't realize that, is that they've done their work, and gent drivers normally have life away from racing. So it's understanding that's the point. Like, they aren't these manufacturing drivers. You're giving the service you would give to them, but you're making sure, again, you have a lot harder job on your hands.
Thank you. That's great. We actually, David, now have a new name we can share with that group on our email through gent drivers. I keep
Gent
saying
drivers.
experience. I call them experience.
No, gent drivers.
But it all started, just so you know, with that. It actually, Heloise, started with a chief medical officer of a boat racing series.
Yeah.
Came to the ICMS saying, I need help. I've got this vintage class of hydroplane boats. They're on the water, so the reflection of the sun, it's 10 times probably more than it is on a racetrack in terms of the heat they're dealing with. It's incredible. So thank you for that input. We appreciate it.
Right.
I'm going to call them cute from now on, actually, is what I'm going to
modeling with their little helmets. It's so cute.
Tell Dr. Kaplan and Dr. Price that I'm not going to go there.
Dr. Hill, please.
Heloise, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm just genuinely curious, because you have a background in research. Are you still doing research? You didn't really talk about any of it today. And if you are, is it more like proprietary work that you're kind of experimenting on weekends, figuring out what might work, what you might want to change, things like that?
In terms of my own research, I think I realized very early on with Dr. Ferguson that it's very difficult to get anything published, to find the time to get people on board, to get the money for it, to get the time for it, to get teams on board, obviously with WRT and stuff, like that's like years of relationship there. And if you want to do so much more in the sport, you're kind of like a Trojan horse from the inside is where I'm coming from. Like I now have drivers coming up to me and I'm not working with them, you know, having gels, having their own systems that I've done and doing that in their own team. So in terms of research, I love it. I love researching. I love reading about it. But I would say in terms of my aspect of it, I think it almost doesn't have as much of a reward for me as does like working one-on-one with the driver, working with teams, implementing protocols, teaching them how to be an athlete. I think some drivers don't quite grasp it, but once you get them into triathlon and running and strength training, this whole mentality shift of, you know, understanding where you can push yourself in mental resilience, the research into that, I think will come. But like changing the sport from within and being there on one-on-one, I think is having more of an effect for me and for the drivers. It's just interesting knowing that if a driver is working with me or being trained by me, it's nice to hear like, oh, you must be like working hard. You must be like, oh, you're learning. Oh, you're really putting in a shift. Like there's that dynamic. And I think, like I was saying, like you're trying to build a personal brand and a personal reputation where you know that if they're working with you, they're doing it by the book. They're like, there's no shortcut. There's nothing to it. They're doing it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not going to question that because they got a protocol going. This looks streamlined, you know? And then that then showcases, you'll then see again, if you have a lineup of 11 drivers and you got one doing it, all of a sudden curiosity peaks. And you have drivers coming up to you and questioning you like, hey, can I implement this? Hey, how can I do this? That seemed like it really worked for them. He walked out looking fresh. I looked out like I couldn't breathe. You know, you're really trying to inspire. And I think personally for me, it's easier to inspire on the ground than it is in the books.
Yeah, super interesting. I'm in kind of a follow up to that because you mentioned it and just some experience that I've had in the past. Do you ever just like outwardly point out like, hey, driver A got out of the car and they look that way because they train? Because sometimes you run into drivers who are a little more resistant to any sort of kind of nutritional approach, any sort of different training approach. Do you ever outwardly point that out to drivers?
Oh my God, all the time. I work with a lot of blokes and egos. I'm not there to hold them. So in that sense, it's a case of when someone comes out and goes, God, that was really hard, like, and you're like, you expect it to be easy, or, in terms of the sense of you wanted results without working for it. Like, what are we, it's the whole thing of case in point. Like, he walks out and he goes, yeah, but he walked out looking fresh. Okay, he also does 15 hours of training a week. What do you do? And I get a lot of drivers going, but I'm trying. And the whole sense of, are you? It's questioning that, are you? Because if I say 5 things that you haven't done, that means you're not trying. Are you doing the training? Are you working on nutrition? Are you getting even steps in? Have you cut out alcohol? Have you, looked into coaching? Have you done, how's your sleep? Are you on 2 hours of sleep? Are you staying up till dawn? Like, there's so many things that you can have a brutally honest conversation and they'll respect you more. And it's not to say like, oh, like I practice what I preach. So in the sense of they know that if they're working with me, I'm doing it. I'm up longer than them. And, in a 24, us crew are up longer than the drivers. We're working, and in terms of having 11 drivers, it's very hard to get it synced. So normally you don't get it synced, and you don't get time for sleep, but somehow you're still up and running. So it's kind of being a showcase yourself, but I have no problems calling it out. And I do. And I think any driver I've worked with or any team I work with say the same thing, is that I have no problem calling it out, because I don't understand the complaining if you're doing nothing about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I think we have time for one more question. I do have one from someone who's not here, but we'll see if it's open for the rest of the group. I always do this thing. I pause and then I go to ask the question I have, and someone pops in the question. So I'm going to make this just extra long this time.
Okay.
I'm going to go for it. So your friend Abby says hello.
Yes, Abby.
So this question ties into what you were just talking about. You and her had several conversations about the types of drivers you train and how you've interacted with them differently. So her question kind of centered on, is there any personality of a driver that you don't want to train, or you'd rather recommend to a different type of trainer or a different type of individual? And if so, how do you sort of figure that out?
That's a great question.
Thank you. You can thank her later for it.
That's a great question. Driver I wouldn't work with. I think a driver I wouldn't work with, I'll always say ask what they're willing to do. I think drivers who I don't think I could stand working with a driver who's like, big goals, big efforts, but like if you're saying, okay, what are you willing to sacrifice, and then go nothing, okay, then jog on. You can find someone else's time. I think that I'll have a certain list of capabilities and needs and effort required. I don't need you to be the best driver. I need you to be able to put in effort, because again, effort doesn't require talent. So it's the whole thing of, will you work with me and trust me to get you where you want to be, and work through the goals in that point. I think with boy racers especially, you can't get away from the God complex and the ego. It's not necessarily something fun to work with. It's something you manage. Again, if you go in with an expectation of, hey, this is how I work, this is how I communicate, this is how things are going to work, you'll butt heads, you will have the screaming matches, I won't lie. But like at the end of the day, you have to say to them, you can drop me at any point. And you have to have that confidence. You can drop me at any point. It is your decision. And once you give that and you have that confidence, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, whoa, okay. And it's a whole thing of understanding it's a two-way street. So you have that conversation of, yeah, you can drop me at any point, but remember, I can drop you at any point. So it's a two-way street, and it's respect both ways. And you have to have that respect. So unless it was a driver that, again, it's all show and tell but doesn't want to put in the work, I probably would just say, go find a personal trainer that, is probably a lower wage. But then like, they're not going to last anyway. So it's the whole point. I think the biggest thing is ego and managing it, and almost demanding respect both ways. Because as much as they can drop you, I think it's showcasing that. They often forget, because again, you are staff. But it's also reminding them you can drop them at any point, and if disrespected, they will be. That's it. Like, it's understanding that mentality. With most sports, a lot of like, oh, I don't want to drop things, I don't want to do this, don't want to do that. Oh, how will this be seen? How will that be seen? People move quick. Names move quick. Seats move quick. People are forgotten quick. Like, there's no complacency. There's no room for complacency. So in terms of difficult drivers, understand where you're at, meet them where they're at, and it's an equal playing field at the end of the day. No name's too big, really.
I love it. Thank you very much. And with that brings us to a close for today. This was very enjoyable. I think we learned a lot of new terms that I think we're going to circulate quite a lot. You touched on a lot of the psychological aspects. I think are going to trigger some new research studies for Dr. Hill, and I might bug him to try and be involved. Which to
the
him,
motion sickness happens so much behind a safety car. It's ridiculous, and they are like top drivers. They never let me mention their names, but they are top drivers who get really, really sick under a safety car. And it was motion sickness tablets that helped, obviously.
So I will say I'll drop one nugget of information I have on that topic, and that is ginger tablets may help if they don't want to do the motion sickness tablets.
Yeah.
One little with that, but we still got to figure that out. There's still some questions to answer and figure out how to go there.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is I can't retire next week like I was planning. There's more questions to answer.
No, there's more to it. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Well, no, this has been fantastic. I'm so grateful for your time. I think we fit this one in around your schedule this year that we were able to do it. So I'm so glad you were able to do it. I am also very grateful you sent that email and I replied. I think this has been a great working relationship and a great friendship over the years. I always enjoy seeing you in the paddock. And as time goes on, I seem to look rougher and rougher as the races go on. So I got to start maybe taking better care of myself with that. So I will simply say, thank you very much. I appreciate you, Heloise. I appreciate all of you for being here and sharing our information. And we will see you next time. Take care,
See you
everybody.
next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.